Hi, welcome to Virtual CB1A. This is Ma'am Rena, and for today's video discussion, we are going to focus on congruence and triangles. We will start with identifying congruent figures. So, simple lang naman ang definition ng congruent figures. If they have exactly the same size and the same shape, then they are congruent. So, we have here two sets of figures. On the first set of figures, as you can notice, we have quadrilaterals and their angles are similar to one another. Their measurements of segments are congruent to one another, and they are in exactly the same size and shape. So they are congruent. While in the second set, meron tayong triangle, meron tayong quadrilateral, tapos hindi pa sila magkakasing laki, hindi pa sila magkakasing shape. Therefore, they are not congruent. Okay? So now, let's define congruence. So when two figures are congruent, there is a correspondence between their angles and sides, such that corresponding angles are congruent and corresponding sides are congruent. So for us to prove that two figures are congruent, all we have to do is to list down all their corresponding angles and corresponding sides. Pagka meron dyang naligaw na dalawang side na hindi congruent sa isa't isa or dalawang angles na hindi congruent sa isa't isa, then the two figures are not congruent. Okay? So, napakasimple lang mag-prove ng congruence. All you have to do is to prove that they have corresponding angles that are congruent and corresponding sides that are congruent. So for the triangle below, we have triangle ABC and triangle PQR, which is read, this is given here. Triangle ABC is congruent to triangle PQR. The notation shows the congruence and the correspondence. So, paano nyo napakita yung congruence and correspondence at the same time? So, look at the arrangement of the letters in the two triangles. So, for the corresponding angles, we have A. The first angle is congruent to P. So, when naming the two congruent triangles, dapat nagsisimula siya, kung nagsisimula yung unang triangle sa angle A, then the second triangle should start with the angle that is congruent to A, which is P. So, kaya ang simula rin niya ay P. Next, we have angle B is congruent to Q. If the second letter in your first triangle is B, then the second letter on your second triangle must represent the angle congruent to B, which is Q. Ayan. And then si C, congruent siya kay R. So, the third letters are C and R, respectively. Now, is there any other way to represent this triangle such that you will still show the congruence and correspondence? Meron pa. So, lagi mo lang susundin yung arrangement nila depending on the corresponding angles. So, for example, you can write this as, ito nga, meron na tayong BCA. So, BCA is congruent to triangle QRP. So, si B ang nauna, B is congruent to Q. So, sa second na triangle, si Q yung inuna natin. Next, C, it is congruent to R. So, second letter is R. Third letter is A. It is congruent to P. So, the third letter is P. If you wish to write it in a different way, pwede pa rin. Napakaraming possible na combinations nito. You can write this as CAB. Is congruent to triangle R. P is congruent to A, so P. And B is congruent to Q, so Q. You can write this as triangle CAB is congruent to triangle RPQ. Okay? And then for the corresponding sides, tingin lang tayo sa mga notches natin dito. We have one notch between A and B. So, segment AB is congruent to segment PQ having one notch as well. So, isa lang din yung marking niya. Next, we have BC. BC, meron tayong two notches. It is congruent to QR, which has two notches as well. Finally, we have CA or AC. So, CA, there are three notches. It is congruent to RP or PR, which has three notches as well. Okay? Okay. So, I think this time we are going to have, ayan, naming congruent parts of the triangle. So, dito, the congruent triangles represent the triangles in the photo. Hindi siya above, on the side siya. Write a congruent statement and identify all parts of congruent corresponding parts. Shown ka agad yung solution. So, tanggalin natin yung naka-show na solution dito. Yan. Kunyari, hindi natin siya alam. Ayan. So, gawa tayo ng congruent statement and i-identify natin yung congruent corresponding parts. I think mas madali na i-identify muna natin yung congruent corresponding parts before tayo gumawa ng congruent statement. Kasi di ba naka-base nga yung congruent statement natin sa congruent corresponding angles, di ba? So, before we proceed with congruent statement, let's identify all the pairs of congruent parts muna. Let's start with the corresponding angles. Okay, what are the corresponding angles? Look at the markings. Napakadali lang ng clue natin. So, let's start with the first letter D. So, we have angle D is congruent to, dalawa yung markings niya, then it is congruent to angle R. Next, we have angle E. It has one curve. Isa lang yung marking. It is congruent to angle S. Yung may isang curve lang din. Next, we have angle F. May 3 markings tayo for the angle. So, we have angle F is congruent to angle T. Now, let's proceed with the corresponding sides. What are the corresponding sides? So, depende ulit sa markings. We have segment DE. May isa siyang notch. We have RS. Next, we have EF. It is congruent to, asan yun? ST. And finally, we have tatlong notch DF. We have DF is corresponding to RT. Ayan. And take note, dito sa arrangement natin ng corresponding sides, sinusunod pa rin natin yung idea of corresponding vertices or corresponding angles. If you started your segment with D, so the next segment must start with R then. So, depende lang din siya dun sa mga corresponding na vertices natin. Ito. Susundin nyo lang yan lagi. Although, you can write this as segment DE is congruent to segment RS, wala naman siyang problema. But, to show the the relationship of correspondence clearly, I suggest that you follow the idea of corresponding angles na rin sa pagsusulat ng corresponding sides. Take note of your vertices. Dapat parehas din sila ng order. Now, let's write our congruence statement. Since we already have a correspondence between the angles and the sides, pwede na tayong magsulat ng congruent statement stating that triangle DEF, so DE, dito siya sa RS, and D is for R, S is for E. So we have R, S, and finally T. So congruent statement, triangle DEF is congruent to triangle RST. Okay? So ganito lang siya kasimple. silipin natin yung ay, ba't ganito? Silipin natin yung solution from our ayan, parehas lang naman sila, pero inuna niya dito yung congruence statement. Okay. Ay, paano ko ba siya lalagyan ng marking dito? Wait lang ah. Inaaral ko pa. Paano ko siya ililipat? Ay, hindi ko talaga siya mailipat. O, dito na lang. Yan. Para may compare natin side by side yung solution natin on both. Okay. So, parehas lang. Parehas lang naman yung solution natin. Only that, I prefer to do it this way. Corresponding angles muna before corresponding sides. So, meron tayong valid na reason for writing the congruent statement. Meron tayong basis for the angles and the sides. Okay? Okay. Now, let's move forward to ayan. Example number 2, using properties of congruent figures. So, in the diagram, we have quadrilateral NPLM and quadrilateral EFGH. So, since nilagay niya na dito yung symbol na congruence, we can assume that angle N corresponds to angle E. Ito. Angle P corresponds to angle F. Angle L corresponds to angle G. And angle M corresponds to angle H. And from here, ang mga kailangan lang naman nating i-take note ay si angle E at saka si segment GH. Ito lang yung mga kailangan natin na parts for the second triangle. So, ang mga kailangan lang natin on the first triangle para ma-solve natin si X and Y ay yung corresponding with angle E, which is angle N, at saka yung side corresponding to segment GH. And dito, ang GH natin is on the third and fourth letter. So, ito si GH. Yan. Segment GH. So, dito sa kabila, we are actually looking at segment LM. So, we will be using segment LM for the first triangle para makuha natin yung measurement ni GH. Okay? So, now, let's find the value of X. Ang X natin ay gagamit ng GH. So, for A, find the value of X. We will make use of the idea that segment LM is congruent to segment GH. Using properties of equality, we know that LM, which is 8 meters, is equal to GH, which is 2x minus 3 meters. Maya na natin isulat yung unit of measurement na meters. We have 8 plus 3, using addition property of equality, is equal to 2x. This is 11, which is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2. You will end up with 11 over 2 or 5.5 meters. Alin man dito yung maging sagot nyo, 11 over 2 or 5.5, parehas kung tatanggapin. Okay? Now, let's move forward to letter B. For letter B, we are looking at the value of y. So, to get the value of y, we will be needing angle N. So, angle N is congruent to angle E, which is using the properties of equality, 72 degrees is equal to 7y plus 9 degrees. Using addition property of equality, 72 minus 9 is equal to 7y. So we have here 63 degrees is equal to 7y. Divide both sides by 7. We have 9 is equal to y. Okay. So the measurement of y is 9, while the measurement of x is 5.5 or 11 over 2 meters. Ay, don't forget the degree here. Yan. So this is the end of example number 2. Let's move forward to example number 3. Ay, wala pa pala tayong example number 3. May i-introduce pala tayong bagong theorem. So this is called the third angles theorem. So actually, based din to sa sa sum of angles theorem natin before. So if you have three angles inside the triangle, triangles angle A, angle B, and angle C, we have measurement of angle A plus the measurement of angle B plus the measurement of angle C is equal to 180 degrees, right? So for the third angles theorem, if you have two angles of one triangle that are congruent to two angles of another triangle, so corresponding si angle B kay angle E at corresponding si angle A kay angle D, then the third angles, which are C and F, are also congruent. Okay? Ayan, ang simple lang nito, third angles theorem. So this time, I think ito na yung example. Yung kasunod na page. Kaso nagahang siya, wait lang. Okay, we have now example number 3. We will make use of the third angles theorem to find the value of x. Okay, so gawa tayo ng relationship dito for the corresponding angles. Ano-ano yung mga corresponding angles natin? So we know that angle L is congruent to angle S because because they have the same marking, number of curves. Ayan. Next, angle N is congruent to angle R. And this is, of course, based on the given figure. Now, let's go to the measurement of angle M. So, measurement of angle M is equal to 180 degrees minus the measurement of the two angles. Shinortcut ko na ha. Dapat talaga measurement of angle L plus the measurement of angle N plus the measurement of angle M is equal to 180 degrees. Pero, dito ko na nasusulat. Dito hindi na. Gusto ko masanay kayo na hindi na iniisa-isa. Straight to the point na. So, this is measurement of angle M is equal to 180 degrees minus the measurement of angle L minus the measurement of angle N. Ayan. So, this is 180 degrees minus 65 degrees minus 55 degrees. Which is equal to measurement of angle M is 65 plus 55. 120. So, this is 60 degrees. Tama ba? I think so. So, we are going to make use of this value. Measurement of angle M is equal to 60 degrees para makuha natin yung measurement ni X. Okay? So, let's compute. So, since measurement of angle M is congruent to the measurement of angle T. This is because of the third angle theorem. We have 60 degrees is equal to 2x plus 30. 60 minus 30 is equal to 2x. Don't forget your degrees. Then we have 30 degrees is equal to 2x. Divide both sides by 2 to get the value of x. We have 15 is equal to x. Okay? Okay, so the value of x is 15. Let's check. 2 times 15 plus 30. Dapat equal to sa 60. So, 30 plus 30 equals sa 60. So, tama. Tama yung solution natin. This is 15 is equal to x. You can always check the solution on the book. Meron naman tayong reference na ginagamit. Medyo iba kasi minsan yung mga ginagamit ko, the terms, hindi exactly. Katulad nito, ang tawag ko kanina sum of interior angles. So, dito triangle sum theorem. So, sometimes I forget the actual term for the theorems. But the important thing is, you know the keywords. Yan. Now, let's go to example number 4. Ayan. Determining whether the triangles are congruent. We have here two triangles. We have triangle PQR and triangle MQN. Hindi ko pa sinasabing congruent sila kasi hindi ko pa alam yung arrangement ng mga angles natin and sides. So, decide whether the triangles are congruent and justify your reasoning. Actually, ay, wala pala dito. The proof in your book is already given. Teka lang Pakita ko lang. Tapos, try natin siyang sundin. Hindi ko kasi sure kung paragraph ang ginamit niya or two-column proof Kung ano man yung ginamit niya. Ready. Ayan, nag-paragraph proof siya. So, try din natin mag-paragraph proof. Tapos, lagay din natin dito yung two-column proof maya-maya. Hindi ako magaling sa paragraph proof So, decide whether the triangles are congruent and justify your reasoning. So, from the figure, we have we are given teka lang sabi ko sa inyo, hindi ako magaling sa paragraph proof Lagyan na natin dito, given that tayong gumamit ng pronoun. Given that segment P R is congruent to segment NM segment PQ kulang ako sa space segment PQ is congruent to segment NQ and segment QR is congruent to segment QM there is a correspondence between the sides. Okay, now let's go to the angles. We have to prove that there is also a correspondence between the angles. Kasi may mga corresponding sides na tayo eh. So, through the given figure, angle P is congruent to angle N by the vertical angle theorem. Ayan, gagamitin na natin yung idea ng vertical angles. PQR is congruent to NQM. Vertical angle theorem. Angle PQR is congruent to angle NQM. And by the third angle theorem, angles theorem, it follows that angle R is congruent to angle M. Okay. Ayan. So, meron na tayong tatlong corresponding angles. Angles P is congruent to N, angle PQR is congruent to angle NQM, and angle R is congruent to angle M. In conclusion, we have triangle PQR. Ang corresponding kay P ay CN is congruent to N. Corresponding to Q is of course Q pa rin, and corresponding to R is M. In conclusion, triangle PQR is congruent to triangle NQM by the definition of congruence. Of congruent triangles. Okay, ayan. Ito yung paragraph proof natin for this example. Siyempre, meron tayong proof dito na given sa book that is somehow medyo iba dun sa akin kasi hindi kami parehas word by word, pero parehas lang naman yung content. So, from the diagram, you are given all the three pairs of corresponding sides that are congruent. So, ang sa akin ay given that, ayan. Okay, I prefer the two-column proof kasi hindi ko kailangan mag-isip ng grammar. Hindi ako kailangan mag-effort to make my sentences grammatically correct. So, mas madali para sa akin ng two-column proof. Kayo, free kayo. Pwede nga kayo mag-flowchart dito eh. Nasa sa inyo yan? Now, ayan, meron tayo ditong proving two triangles are congruent. I am not sure kung ano yung ginamit niyang outline ng proof dito, kung paragraph ba or two-column. Yan, magto-two-column proof tayo. Sige. Saya to. So, proving two triangles are congruent. So, the diagram represents the triangular stamps shown in the photo. Prove that triangle AEB is congruent to triangle DEC. And we have the given here. So, meron tayong mga markings. Take note of our key markings. Medyo malilituhin ako pagdating sa geometry. So, mas gusto ko na nilalagyan ng pamanda bukod dun sa mga pamanda na given na. So, ipoprove natin ay triangle AEB is congruent to triangle DEC. So, itong dalawang yellow na triangles, ito lang yung kailangan nating i-prove na congruent. And we are also given that meron tayong special na marking dito. Ayan, may dalawang arrow. Ibig sabihin, si AB ay parallel kay CD or DC. And also, given na rin that AB is congruent to DC. May isa pang given, si midpoint. Sabi niya, ito daw E ay midpoint ng BC at saka ng AD. We have to prove that AEB is congruent to DEC. So, plan for proof. Use the fact that angle AEB and DEC are vertical angles to show that those angles are congruent. Yan, madali na pala to eh. So, dito, dapat mapakita natin na itong dalawa ay congruent. And then, use the fact that BC intersects parallel segments AB and DC to identify other pairs of angles that are congruent. So, ito, BC intersecting AB. Gagamit tayo ng idea ng transversals at saka yung mga special angle pairs natin such as alternate interior angles. Yan. Ito yung mga kailangan pala natin gamitin. Okay. So, since wala tayong masyadong space dito for the two-column proof, gawa tayo ng isa pang space. Ito ay i-ano natin. Duplicate natin. KK. Burahin ko muna lahat ng mga sinulat ko sa page na to. Nakalagay naman siya dun sa kabilang page eh. And you can always go back to this or you can always rewind the video to see the markings that we made earlier. So, dito ang kailangan ko lang na marking ay yung para sa dalawang triangles. Yan. Gusto ko yellow. Kailangan ko lang ay markings ng dalawang triangle. So, mamaya na ulit ako gagawa ng iba pang markings. Okay, gawa tayo ng two-column proof. On one side, we have here the statements. And on the other side, we have the reasons. Given. Ba't given ang sinulat ko? Kasi lagi tayo nagsisimula sa given for reasoning, di ba? When we are proving that certain quantities are congruent or the same or valid. Yan. Okay. So, statement number 1. Statement number 1. Dun muna tayo sa mga segment. We have AB is congruent to DC. This is, of course, because of the given. 2. E is the midpoint of BC and AD. Again, this is given. What can we get based on this given? So we can use the idea of this midpoint to say that BE is congruent to EC or CE and DE or AE, dito muna tayo sa unang triangle, AE is congruent to DE. So, dito ay definition tayo ng midpoint. Okay, by definition of a midpoint, it will divide your line segment into two congruent segments. So, for segment BC, it was divided into two congruent parts, segment BE and segment CE. And for AD, it was divided into two congruent segments, AE and DE. Okay, now punta na tayo sa statement number 4. Ayan, meron na tayong mga corresponding sides. Kompleto na. We have AB is congruent to DC, BE is congruent to CE, AE is congruent to DE. May mga corresponding sides na tayo. Corresponding angles naman. May clue tayo dito. Gamitin daw natin una si vertical angles. So, we have angle AEB is congruent to angle CED. Tama? CED or DEC. Yan. Mamaya ako sasabihin kung bakit ang ginamit ko ay DEC instead of CED. Pwede rin naman. Parehas din naman. Parehas silang angle E. Pero gusto kong maging specific dun sa DCE natin. DEC. Ayan. So, this is through the vertical angles theorem. So, according to the vertical angle theorem, if two angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. Number 5. Let's assume that BC is a line segment that cuts two parallel lines, AB and CD. Ito. Therefore, BC will act as your transversal. And you will get two congruent angles, B and C. So, kaya inarrange ko siya dito na parehas nasa dulo si B at C. Para we are clear that we are talking about side EC and EB that are congruent. Okay, so sulat natin dito, angle. Hindi tayo basta-basta pwede magsulat lang na angle B is congruent to angle C. In my opinion, ha. Pero, kung clear naman that we are only talking about these two triangles, pwede nyo siya isulat na angle B and angle C. Pero hindi ako comfortable kasi meron tayo ditong ACE. Meron tayo ditong DCE. Tapos meron din tayong ACD. So, gusto ko mas maging specific. So, I will write here angle ECD at saka angle EBA. O kaya, angle ABE, tatlong letters yung gagamitin ko. And angle DCE. So, ano yung ginamit natin ditong theorem or definition? So, we made use of the alternate interior angle. I am not sure if this is a theorem or definition. Parang theorem siya. Theorem yata to. Yan. Yun ang weakness ko. Hindi ko natatandaan lahat. Kailangan ko ng cheat sheet lagi. Alam ko that they are congruent, but I am not really certain if the reason will be a theorem or a definition. Mas magulo kapag may corollary. Kasi may corollary pa tayo, may postulate pa tayo. So, nagmi-mix up talaga yun sa utak ko. But, when checking your exam, hindi naman ako magiging super specific. Siyempre, kapag ka nag-exam kayo sa ibang teachers or sa let, mas magiging specific sila sa mga words na theorem, ganyan-ganyan. Pero dito sa class natin, you can always refer to your books or to the videos that we recorded in the past and see whether it is a theorem or a postulate or a definition. So later on, i-clear natin to. Tingin tayo dun sa solution ng book. Okay, meron na tayong isa, dalawa. Dalawa na yung congruent na angle natin. Isa pang congruent angle, solve na tayo. Ang natitira na lang na angle, kasi ito, na-prove na natin to kanina, di ba? Through the vertical angle. Vertical angles theorem. Ito, alternate interior angles theorem. So, ang natitira na lang ay ito, CA. So, meron tayong BAE at saka CDE. So, angle BAE is congruent to angle CDE. What is our reason? So, pwede mo rin i-let si AD as a segment intersecting the parallel lines AB and CD, and then use the alternate interior angles theorem. But instead, mas gusto kong gamitin yung bagong theorem na inaral natin. Dito sure na sure ako na theorem yon. So we have third angles theorem, stating that if the two angles of your triangle are congruent, then the third angles are congruent as well. So we have here the reason. It is because of the third angles theorem. So lagay tayo ng conclusion. So symbol na lang din ulit. If you see the three dots, that means in conclusion. So the conclusion is angle AEB is congruent to DEC by the definition of congruent triangles. So since they have three corresponding sides and three corresponding angles, triangle AEB is congruent to triangle, tama ba yung arrangement ko? A. Tama. Triangle AEB is congruent to triangle DEC. A corresponds to D, B corresponds to C, and E corresponds to itself E. Okay. Okay. Solve tayo dito. Next. Ay, hindi ko pala siya na bago kanina. May blanco dito. Ayan, ito yung ano natin. Ito pala yung proof galing sa book. Ayan. Parehas lang kami ng ginamit. Given alternate interior angles, vertical angles, given definition of midpoint, congruent triangles. Hindi lang niya ginamit yung third angles theorem. Ayan. Ang ginamit niya, interior angles theorem lang parehas. Ayan. Pero pwede nyo gamitin to, third angles theorem. Kaya nga natin inaral eh. Diba? So, that will be it for example number 4. I think we have more examples dito sa material natin. Ay, before that, meron pa pala tayong mga theorem na i-discuss. So, we have theorem 4.4. To make it safe, I will cut the video at this part. And then, I will make another video starting with these 3 theorems, okay?